What's going on, everybody? Decided to do a quick stream tonight. Initially, I planned on doing a stream about the LAPD union director and his cash swindling daughter in the LAPD. I just wanted to show you guys the scams that they pull. But tonight, we decided to do something else because Karen Bass pissed me off yesterday. She was asked about why there were so many fire department apparatus that were out of commission during the fires. And she said, well, you know what? I want to have an investigation into that. And I take offense to that because I feel like we've already investigated this. And Karen Bass is responsible for this apparatus being out of order. So what I want to do is I want to start off by showing you what she said, which was really annoying. Let me play this for you. This is what she said. Let me know. Let me know if you can hear this. Is everything good?
Yes.
We learned that during the wildfires, there were dozens of decommissioned fire trucks. Can you talk?
Yes.
We learned that during the wildfires, there were dozens of decommissioned fire trucks. Can you talk about the process of repairing them and what that looks like and the response to that new information about these fire trucks not being used during this critical time?
Sure. Well, again, there needs to be a full investigation because there were fire trucks that had mechanical issues, and we need to make sure that there are mechanics to take care of them.
Now, this really pisses me off, right? Because she's saying that there are trucks that had mechanical issues and we didn't have enough mechanics. Well, that's her fault. She caused that. She literally caused that. I'm going to explain that further in a minute, but I just want to play this out and we'll come back and critique this.
But there were also fire trucks that were idle because of staffing. And that's an issue in terms of the deployment, the pre-deployment, all of that is an issue, and all of that will be investigated. And as I said in the beginning, I wanted to get past the emergency. So the fires are 100% contained as of Friday. And then right after that, we're facing the rains, which are continuing. And hopefully, I asked the National Weather Service, what did the weather look like in the month of February? So hopefully, we will at least not have to deal with more rain, which is the potential.
She's just distracting. The question was asked about the vehicles that were idling. Now, first off, let me tell you something. Who is this? KTLA. They said that they just reported that this was an issue on Thursday. Guys, I went to that fire yard and documented with video a month ago. This has been out there for a while. This isn't anything new. But with that having been said, when she's asked about that, she's talking about, mudslides and rain and all that other stuff. But she didn't want to answer the question, right? And listen, there's a reason for that. I think it's important that we go through a timeline of how we got to this point. Okay. Now, months ago, before all this happened, 6 months ago, 8 months ago, we had a budget that went into place. And that budget reduced LAFD funding by about $18 million. The police got $100 and something million increase, but the LAFD, they saw their funding slashed. And leading up to that, the fire chief, Crowley, had been complaining about being understaffed and underfunded. She was mentioning that in the last decade and a half, they've seen a number of calls for service go up by over 50%. But at the same time, the number of fire department employees have decreased, right? So that's a problem because at the end of the day, right, you still have to respond to every call. You have to. Even if you have less staff, that just means that those staff are going to have to work more hours and they're going to have to work overtime. That's how it's going to, how you're going to deal with it. They're going to have to work overtime. But when you're doing it that way, what happens is rather than staffing appropriately, you end up having to, which would be cheaper than having to pay somebody time and a half for overtime. Let me adjust this. It's driving me crazy. It was a little too low, a little too high. So that's where we're at, right? I want to play this again because I think it's important to hear exactly what she said and how she's trying to be evasive. Listen to the question, listen to her answer.
Yes.
One more thing, ACLE 5, because we learned that during the law fires, there were dozens of decommissioned fire trucks. Can you talk about the process of repairing them and what that looks like and the response to that new information about these fire trucks not being used during this critical time?
Sure. Well, again, there needs to be a full investigation because there were fire trucks that had mechanical
Sorry
issues.
about that, guys.
And we need to make sure that there are mechanics to take care of them. But there were also fire trucks that
Being a
were
little sloppy
idle
here. I'm
because
behind.
of
I didn't
staffing.
actually plan anything out.
And,
Right? I've been running behind.
Can you talk about the
Here's
process
again.
of repairing them and what that looks like and the response to that new information about these fire trucks not being used during this critical time?
Sure. Well, again, there needs to be a full investigation because there were fire trucks that had mechanical issues, and we need to make sure that there are mechanics to take care of them. But there were also fire trucks that were idle because of staffing.
Okay.
And
they didn't have enough mechanics, and they were idle because of staffing. That's a Karen Bass problem. That's a Karen Bass created problem. Like I said, I'm going to go through some of these documents. We're going to go through these documents together. I'm going to detail how the fire chief has been sounding the alarm on this time and time again, and how Karen Bass, rather, and I think it's punitive, decided that she wanted to cut the fire department budget over and over again. And it didn't make sense. And we're paying for it, or we paid for it with these fires. Listen, I think that she gets a lot of criticism for how she handled the fires, and some of it is unfair, right? At the end of the day, when it's 80 to 100-mile-per-hour winds and you're having that firestorm and the helicopters are grounded, there's only but so much you can do. But at the same time, you can't tell me when 21% or somewhere around there of fire trucks are out of commission that they couldn't have had an effect, that they couldn't have defended some structures, and that they could have potentially saved some lives. People will say, well, they really wouldn't make that much of a difference. Then why are we bringing in trucks from out of state or from other countries if these trucks didn't matter? Now, there's a timeline of events. After this fire, when this fire happened, Karen Bass, she was overseas in Ghana, socializing, doing whatever she's doing. Listen, I don't know what the hell. Why is the LA mayor over in Ghana anyway? She's taken, 5-6 trips overseas or out of the country since she became a mayor 2 years ago? For what? What does this have to do with LA business? And she was warned about this potential for, and using her own words, life-threatening winds. She knew about this and she decided to stay over in Ghana. She could have been like, hey, Joe Biden, can you get me on a military plane, get me the fuck up out of here and back to LA? I'm in trouble. I need to be there now. No, she decided she was going to have her cocktails and socialize and schmooze while LA was getting ready for this, potential life-threatening event. Her words. When the fire did happen, we started taking a look at the budget. Now, Kenneth Mejia, the LA City Controller, released some graphs last year showing the increases and decreases to the budget. All right, let me pull that up because I think it's important to look at that. All right, let me pull this up. So it was just easier to use my Twitter account to pull this stuff up. So here's a graph of increases and decreases to the LA City budget 2024 through 2025. Keep in mind, the budget year starts halfway through the year. So 2024-2025 budget started July 1st and it goes to June 30th of this year, right? So we are smack in the middle of the budget year. Now, if you look up here at this top line, that is the police increase. That was $120-something million increase. What is it, like $126 million? That was an increase in the police budget. And if you look down here to the bottom, the second to the bottom, that is the fire department. And that's showing a $17.6 million decrease. So we massively increased the police budget and we decreased the fire department budget at the same time. Now, mind you, right? And there's a lot of dynamics that are going on here. This just wasn't a cut. This is a time when the fire department was completely understaffed and equipment is falling apart and needs to be replaced. It's at the end of its life. And at the same time, we've neglected whole areas of the fire department. Even there have been reports lately showing fire department facilities itself crumbling, right? And an outside advisory group came in and audited the fire department and found that they're short, if they want to get to international standards, they're short about 500 firefighters. They need to increase it by 500. Now, the fire chief, right? Understanding the politics and understanding the fiscal situation, she didn't ask for an increase of 500 employees. What she asked for was, hey, can I get like a third of those increase right now? Karen Bass came back and says, because she asked for like 170 more. And Karen Bass said, no, fuck you. We're going to decrease you by what? 71. Instead of increasing like the fire chief asked for. So to relieve some of the stress on the fire department, they have all these calls for service they have to take. Again, if we don't have enough employees taking those calls for service to staff at normal hours, we have to have people work overtime to take those calls. But now we're paying them time and a half. It's just cheaper to properly staff it so we don't have to pay all these overtime bills, right? I mean, it's common sense. This is basic shit, guys. This is basic stuff. But Karen Bass, and listen, we're going to get into it in a minute. There's a lot of politics behind why she's fucking over the fire department. But Karen Bass last year decided that she wanted to decrease the fire department budget. So like I said, look at this chart. Massive increase, $126 million to the police. And we cut the fire department by 17.6 million. And not just that, we cut street services by 21.4 million. We cut sanitation by 15.1, general services by 14.2 million. Guys, we wonder why, if you go in Hollywood, you go to my neighborhood, you walk around, it's fucking falling apart. The curbs are falling apart. There's garbage everywhere. It never gets picked up, and it's driving me crazy. I take great offense to it. I love my neighborhood, and I take offense to seeing how my area has disintegrated over the last couple of years. And primarily because, look, we're giving the cops all this money. We're giving them all this money. I mean, look, we even cut aging by 5.1 million. How fucked up are we? How fucked up are we cut aging. We cut aging by, we deserve to go to hell for that. Here, let me pull it up. We cut aging by 5.1 million so we can give the cops $126 million increase. That says a lot about, the budgets it's a moral document at the end of the day. This is where our priorities go. But I digress on that. So with that having been said, right? Kenneth Mejia released this chart, and so we started talking. A lot of people on Twitter, on social media, started talking about how Karen Bass was overseas and she cut the fire department budget, and we may be paying for it now because of that. Karen Bass, while she was overseas, like I said, she finally decided to get her ass on a plane and get back to work over here rather than schmoozing around. And you had a reporter caught her over in overseas somewhere. I don't know where it was, if it was in the UK or whatnot. A reporter caught her and asked her some questions. Let me pull it up now. You guys have probably seen this, but let's play it again just for the fun of it, just for the sport of it.
Do you owe citizens an apology for being absent while their homes were burning? Do you regret cutting the fire department budget by millions of dollars, Madam Mayor? Have you nothing to say today? Have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today? Elon Musk says that you're utterly incompetent. Are you considering your position? Madam Mayor, have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today who are dealing with this disaster?
I gotta stop for a second. How can she just sit there and say nothing? I can't imagine being in that position. You got to say something. What kind of coward are you? Things are going on. At least send a message back to, because we were lacking leadership for days. I was asking, like, who the fuck is in charge? I was asking around, like, literally, who is in charge? Because the guy who was running, like, her deputy chief of public safety, he's on leave right now because he got caught swatting city council. Like, what the fuck is going on? He's in charge, but he's out of work. Great people you have working for us, Karen Bass. You brought in all the best people, right? But then you have this reporter asking these questions. Why don't you just answer? Say something. For her to say nothing like that, I mean, that's some cowardly shit, but that's the type of person she is.
No apology for them? Do you think you should have been visiting Ghana while this was unfolding back home?
Look at her running. Why is she running? What are you running for? This is when you see it. This is a politician's career ending right here. You're watching it right in front of your face right now.
Madam Mayor, let me ask you just again, have you anything to say to the citizens today?
Say
as
something.
You return?
You can at least give some boilerplate bullshit, something. You can't just run like this.
Madam Mayor, just a few words for the citizens today as you return to deal with the catastrophe.
Can you take this down?
I can't take it. So that's our mayor, right? Who's just incompetent and cowardly and honestly in over her head. I never thought she was built to be a mayor, right? I don't think you can go from 20 years in Congress and think that somehow translates to being a mayor, right? In Congress, you essentially just work on legislation over the course of a couple of years to try to get passed. You try to bring in a bunch of like 50 other co-sponsors of it. All the language is just kind of watered down, and you just go and make floor speeches on the floor with all sort of, I don't know, inspirational type language. Nobody wants to see that in a mayor. They want their fucking potholes filled in front of their house. They want to make sure the streets are clean. This basic functioning shit. This is operational type stuff. She's not an operational person. On top of it, she can't handle criticism. She ran in a district when she won her election in Congress. She was winning 80% to 20%, 85% to 15%. When she came home from Congress, whenever she did, because I see her as a Washington creature, when she came home from Congress, she was greeted with cheers and she never had any sort of pushback. All of a sudden now she's handling real shit and she doesn't know how to handle it. She clammed the fuck up when she was asked some questions. Like, listen, I would have answered some questions better than that. Anybody could answer, to say something. Right? But she chose to say nothing. But later she did, but not her. Where people were bringing up the fact that the budget was cut, her aide started denying it. No, the budget has not been cut. We never cut the budget. That's simply untrue. And it's really frustrating. And it's got to be frustrating for that fire chief who has spent months and years trying to get this budget of hers corrected, and Mayor Bass shitting on her time and time again, saying, no, fuck you, you get nothing, we're cutting your budget, we're cutting your force, fucking deal with it. And she was there time and time again trying to get this increase, and when I say increase, like I said, trying to bring it to international standards, right? So when the mayor was throwing her under the bus. And finally, the fire chief decided that she had it, right? So when the reporters would come up to her and they would ask her, has your budget been cut? And she would try to avoid it because she didn't want to be involved with the politics of that. She just wanted to get on with the damn job and talk about the issues at hand. But she was pressed over and over again. And finally what happened is the fire chief decided to tell the truth. Especially since the mayor lied. The mayor lied on her and threw her under the bus. So the fire chief had enough. So I want to play a couple of videos. All right, let's start with this one.
Let me be clear. The $17 million budget cut and the elimination of our civilian positions like our mechanics did and has and will continue to severely impact our ability to repair our apparatus. So with that, we have over 100 fire apparatus out of service, and having these apparatus in
100 fire apparatus are out of service. She was calling this out weeks ago, a month ago. I mean, she's been calling this out for honestly for many months and years. And here she is after the mayor kept on trying to blame her for the mayor's own incompetence. And I take offense to it with this fire chief. I feel like she has been treated a certain way that has been unfair, and she deserves some defending. I think she's done a great job. I personally think she's done a great job. And so when you have the mayor lying on her, she had enough, and she came out and set the record straight. That there are you can't tell me 100 apparatus, whether it's fire trucks or whatever else, couldn't have made a difference in saving homes, in saving lives, human and pet. You can't tell me it wouldn't have had some effect. So for the mayor to for the mayor to throw her under the bus like that is disgusting, and it's gaslighting. Let me play the rest of this.
the proper amount of mechanics would have helped. And so it did absolutely negatively impact. I want to also be clear that I have, over the last 3 years, been clear that the fire department needs help. We can no longer sustain where we are. We do not have enough firefighters. With that, I have also requested multiple budgets, interim budgets, to show how understaffed, under-resourced, and underfunded the LAFD is. So with that, also, we have clear data that shows the LAFD needs more help. We need 62 more fire stations. These reports also show that we've had a 55% increase in overall call volume since 2010. And guess what? We're doing it with less firefighters. I was also directed to develop a plan as part of a budget reduction exercise. And that
let me rewind that a little bit, because I think that's very important. Again, remember how I was saying that there are calls for service, life-saving services have increased by over 50%, and they're doing that with less firefighters.
And guess what? We're doing it with less firefighters. That increase in overall call volume since 2010. And guess what? We're doing it with less overall call volume since data that shows the LAFD needs more help. We need 62 more fire stations. These reports also show that we've had a 55% increase in overall call volume since 2010. And guess what? We're doing it with less firefighters. I was also directed to develop a plan as part of a budget reduction exercise, and that could equate to $48.8 million. And I rang the bell that these additional cuts could be very, very devastating for our ability to provide public safety. That would have resulted to 15 fire stations closing down and potentially the elimination of over 300 firefighters. Again, I want to be clear that I submitted a very large budget that will actually allow our firefighters to do their job. All
right. So like I said, she's been warning about this, sounding the alarm, literally sounding the alarm about this. And she's telling the truth. I know, because there's video of her at the fire commission meetings, at city council, warning them that this was going to happen if they don't address this. Let me pull this up. All right, let me play this.
There's been a 55.
Now, this is in May of last year. This is many months before the fires. This was during the budget process. And when the mayor outlined her budget, this is what she had to say.
There's been a 55% overall increase for calls for service, and these are life-saving services since 2010, with 68 less sworn personnel. This service delivery model is no longer sustainable. Now, our firefighters each and every day demonstrate their full commitment and sacrifice to serving our community in their time of need. The growth of our community and the increasing complexities of the emergencies we respond to demand an expansion of our life safety service capabilities. We are in need of additional funding and support that matches the pure enormity of our responsibility as first responders and public safety providers. We also understand that we must maximize our efficiencies by leveraging technology. Now, the role of technology in the fire service cannot be overstated, and modern firefighting emergency services technology can significantly enhance our operations, so we must invest now. Investing in technology is investing in our overall ability to save lives, protect property with greater precision and speed. Now, the LAFD is at one of our most critical moments in our 138-year history, and we are at that breaking point where our firefighters can no longer do more with less. We are asking for your support to address these challenges head-on, to invest in the safety and security of our city and our firefighters. And without those adequate field resources and civilian support positions, our department will be required to reprioritize the types of services that we currently provide. I'm very proud to sit with you and have this dialogue, and we know that we have an opportunity to come together to build, fund, and support your fire department so that we're fully equipped, adequately staffed, and ready to meet the growing needs and demands of the 21st century. I'd now be happy to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
All right. So like I said, she's been sounding the alarm. That was her stating that, again, since in the last 15 years, over 50% increase in calls for service. Like I said, not bullshit calls, life-threatening services. And doing it with 68 less personnel. All right, that's unsustainable. And again, I'll say this again. You can't just say, hey, you know what? We're the fire department. We're closed right now. Everybody's we don't have anybody here. No, that means firefighters have to work extra hours because you don't have enough personnel. And those are more expensive hours because you're paying overtime. It makes more sense to properly staff it in the budget and not these little, and listen, honestly, these budgets should be 2-year budgets, 3 years, right? We're going year to year, and you can't properly staff that way because you don't even know if that position will be available next budget year, right? So let's say you get funding for a year for this, takes a couple months to get somebody hired and stuff, and then you don't even know if that position is going to be there next year. It shouldn't be done that way, but that's how, and we do it in like 6 month increments at times. It's none of it makes sense. None of it fucking makes sense. But not much makes sense in LA City. So that was one time when she sounded the alarm, right? She also talked about how being fiscally prudent, again, it was recommended by an advisory firm that came in that audited the fire department and said, hey, you guys are short personnel. You need about 400 more to meet international standards. So she could have said this year, hey, you know what? Or last year, hey, can we get 400 more? No, she didn't. She asked for, I don't know, I think it was 160 or 170. And instead, Bass cut 61, right? Let me pull that up. Let me show you that video.
Very mindful and purposeful of being.
Is there a way can you prioritize those? We obviously, we all have a soft spot for the fire department and the incredible work that you do. But what would the priority be on that?
Sure. So overall, number one priority is to enhance our abilities to provide emergency services, which is directly related to the emergency services side. 82% of what we do is EMS related. And again, going back to that third party that came in and did a deep dive.
Now keep in mind, you hear what I said? A huge percentage. Let me play that again. A huge percentage are EMS related.
To the emergency services side, 82% of what we do is EMS related. And
so 82% is EMS related. So when we're shorting the fire department, we're shorting EMS. You guys happy with shorting EMS? Do you feel that EMS should be something that we should be shorting? Would you rather have 10-minute wait times for EMS or 2 or 3 minutes? You tell me, right? So we're shorting that. And then we're also shorting the firefighters itself. Let's play the rest.
Again, going back to that third party that came in and did a deep dive in our data, they demonstrated and justified where we have gaps in our services across the entire city. And with that, that's where the recommendation came to add the 397 positions. We tried to be very, very mindful and purposeful of being fiscally responsible and asking for the ask in a third. So this would be the first year of our ask. So that's why it's the 159 positions. Priority order absolutely would be to add those life-saving abilities with our capabilities with our emergency resources on the EMS side. So that's the first priority for sure.
So like I said, the outside audit came in, said you need 400 more personnel to get to international standards. They said, listen, we're just going to ask for a third for now. Give us 159. Can we at least increase to 159? We're at a breaking point. And Karen Bass said, fuck you. We're cutting them. We're cutting them. Now, city council stepped in a little bit and brought back, reduced the number of cuts by a tiny bit. I'm going to say like Monica Rodriguez. I'm not in the business of shouting out Monica Rodriguez, but she's been, to me, by far the best at addressing this, trying to reduce these cuts, and a couple of other people. I mean, Tracy Park, we're not going to give her much credit, but I guess a little bit on this. And then who else would be? No, well, that's who we'll give credit for now. So these were our priorities. She's saying, "Hey, man, we're fucked, man. Can you throw us a bone? Can we get a little bit of an increase? These are life saving type positions." And they said, "Now we're cutting you because we're going to give the cops more money." And that's really what it came down to. The cops getting more money prevented the fire department from being properly funded, right? So there she was again, sounding the alarm, saying that, hey, you know what? We need help here. Now, Karen Bass is saying we're going to need to do an investigation to find out why there weren't enough mechanics and stuff. She's telling you why, because you're not giving her enough goddamn money. And again, this is not the only time she's sounding the alarm on this. She was talking, she was addressed the overtime situation.
Go ahead and answer that. So just to...
This is her at I believe this is the police commission meeting. This is October 24th, 2024. So this is, a few months before the fires. And here she was answering questions.
Be very specific with our current budget. So we're 3 months into our current budget. We continue to see an increase in call volume, and we have not increased our overall staffing. So as we lean forward, we still need to continue through this fiscal budget year. And I have to be very clear is we cannot continue to maintain this position that we're in with inadequate number of staff. So the way that we are supplementing that is through overtime, is through force hiring or assign hiring our people. So strategy moving forward is to do a deep dive and absolutely look at the way we dispatch, who we dispatch, how we dispatch, and be more efficient on the very front end. That work is happening now. That's one thing that we can control. Another thing is identifying what types of calls we actually can make ourselves available for, which is we've spread ourselves so thin because we take on more and more missions that may be further and further away from our core fundamentals of saving lives and property, protecting property, I should say. So our command staff, our team, with the input of our boots on the ground, is how are we going to provide the core mission of what and who we are as first responders. We're reallocating the positions that we have. So some of those services will be tapped down in regard to the really nice to haves, which are important for us to continue, but we can't continue down this path. So that's our focus for the next 8 to 9 months within this fiscal year. And that next focus is how do we build out a resource deployment plan with proper staffing proper funding with the flexibility of ensuring that we are meeting the mark and meeting the expectations of the communities that we serve. So we will be asking for and advocating for and educating everybody that needs to be educated in regard to the path that their and our LAFD needs to take to have a system in place that we can sustain. So again, to be clear, we cannot continue down this path with the resources that we have. So we're adjusting. We're adjusting the resources and the staffing that we have. Mind you also that our firefighters are fatigued and we have an increase in injuries as well. It will always be in the forefront of our minds, firefighter health, safety, and well-being. So that will help us dictate what direction we're going to go in for this next remaining fiscal year, let alone as we're working through 25-26 budget, being realistic in our expectations of the amount of staffing that we need, proven by a third party, 2 standards of covers that shows that we are understaffed and under-resourced, and then work with city leadership, the mayor's office, mayor's team, budget and finance, public safety, then to educate and inform so that city leadership can make those determinations of when we have so many competing interests within the city, where we are going to land from the fire department perspective.
All right. So again, she has been warning about this issue. Firefighters are overworked and fatigued because they have to work overtime because they don't have enough staffing. She's been talking about how firefighter apparatus and equipment are out of service because they don't have enough mechanics to fix the equipment. And you listen, this is $1 million equipment. We're talking about 1.2, 1.4, $1.6 million equipment. You're going to have that type of equipment. If you're going to invest in that type of equipment, you should be investing in the maintenance to take care of that equipment. But we chose to give the money to the cops to sit around doing nothing instead while this equipment is being lost. I want to show you this, right? When we talk about this equipment, let's pull this up right here. So if you look over here, it says the number of positions that they had and then the cuts. So these are the cuts Karen Bass made to individual positions, right? So they reduced, when I say these are positions that were unfilled, they were in a process of trying to be filled. And Karen Bass said, no, we're going to cut them. We don't need them. So she reduced maintenance labor by 1. So they had budgeted 1 and they just said, no, we're not even going to do that. Get rid of the laborer. We don't need the maintenance laborer. Same thing when it came to a truck operator. They had 1 budgeted. They said, no, get rid of that, right? When it came to the communications electricians, they had 8 budgeted. They got rid of 1. When it came to the auto painter, they had 4. They reduced it by 1. Tire repairer reduced it by 1 from 2 to 1. Then here's the big thing right here. Heavy duty equipment mechanic. Like, this is the real deal. This is what we need fixed. These mechanics reduced from 33 to 27 by 6. When it came to the senior heavy duty equipment mechanic, they reduced that from 3 to 2. They reduced 1 of those, right? When it came to the mechanical helper, we reduced it from 9 to 5. We cut 4 of those positions. Sheet metal worker reduced, only had 1 budgeted. We got rid of it altogether, so we have 0. And the same thing when it comes to a welder. We had 1 budgeted and we got rid of it to 0. We reduced these positions at the mechanic shard that should be fixing this equipment. So when I heard about this, if you guys don't follow her, Jamie York on Twitter, you should give her a follow. She's she's a friend of mine, but she's also fantastic in the research of the stuff that she does. And honestly, helping me navigate learning about the budget process, not just on this, but just in things in general and ethics commissions and so on and so forth. Let me pull this up. I'll show you her page. I think she's brilliant. And like I said, she's also a friend of mine. Here is her Twitter account, right? And she brought this to my attention. There's this video during public comment of one of the fire commission meetings
on our rigs, which
where a guy was talking about how all this equipment, this is back in October 1st. So we're talking about well before the fires, right? 2 months before the fire started. You had this guy giving a public comment warning the city that we were having a crisis when it comes to apparatus that is out of commission, in need of repair. Let me play this.
I would encourage each member of the Fire Commission to visit the Supply and Maintenance Division Yard in Lincoln Heights if you haven't already had the chance to do so. You'll see rows and rows of fire engines, fire trucks, rescue ambulances, and many other vehicles that are broken down, have been sitting there for months, if not years. Our mechanics are stressed, they're overworked, and they don't have enough time to do the proper maintenance on our rigs, which serves the citizens of Los Angeles. It makes no sense to have $1 million fire trucks and engines sit in the shops because we aren't willing to pay a fraction of that price to hire enough mechanics to keep them rolling. The city finds a way to spend $1.4 billion each year on homeless programs, but we have to beg and plead for $500,000 to get 5 additional mechanics at the shops. I would encourage.
So listen to what he said there. He said, guys, go to the Lincoln Heights yard and look at the equipment, the apparatus that's out of commission waiting for repair. So I went over there. I went over there a month ago to check it out. And I didn't know what I was going to expect to find. And I think I was a little surprised. It was very hard to actually document it. The walls are very high. I'm tall. I'm 6'3", 6'4". And I was reaching up with everything I had on my tiptoes, walking by to get a good, a good view of it. It's a shame I didn't have anybody there with a gimbal to help out. But I went through there and looked at what was going on. So let me pull this up. So this is what I was looking at. Let me start it over again. So I was looking at just all these trucks. And it's hard to tell, but the lot was full. And this is a large piece of property. And it was just rows and rows of fire trucks that were in need of repair. I mean, Jesus. These are all trucks waiting to be repaired. Ladder trucks in need of repair. Like I said, KCAL can talk about how they just reported on this Thursday. Like I said, I did this a month ago. It tells you about the press here in LA. They're always behind. This was just uncovered. Shut up. Look at that. Ladder trucks out of commission. What? This is while the fire. This was on January 11th. This is like 3 days into the fires. The fires are going on all over LA. They could have used these. If you look at the air,
So
the air behind there,
equipment that's
it's
out of
smoke.
service.
That's smoke in the air right there.
That's waiting for repair.
Just tons of equipment sitting there. And so I take offense when Karen Bass is talking about we need to do an investigation into how this happened. It's been investigated. It's there. All the information is out there. You decided to cut the fire department budget. The fire chief begged for help, said we need mechanics, we need firefighters to reduce the strain. You said, fuck you, you get nothing, cut it. And then this equipment, 21% of the equipment is out of commission right now. And she thinks that we need to do an investigation into it. I mean, that's some bullshit, right? Like I said, I've always felt that Karen Bass is truly fucking incompetent. And there it is for you to see. I mean, she is as incompetent as it is. And on top of it, it's not just incompetence. It's like I said, it's the gaslighting. It's the deception. It's the lack of taking accountability. And it's all on display right there. But it goes beyond that because, we talk about how we have the inmates who are working as firefighters as hand crews, right? They're doing the hand crew work. The chief has been asking for help with hand crews. She's been asking for I can't remember how much it was. Let me see if I can find it. Just bear with me for a second. She had been asking. Oh, here we go. Oh. She had been asking for. Let me pull up my. I think I have it on a note somewhere. All right. So the fire chief had been asking for 29 hand crews, hot shots. She's been asking for it for a long time. And the city has taken forever to fund them. It's just always a roadblock, always a roadblock. And then, so finally, I guess they looked at it, and let me pull this up. Here is the hand crew. This is from the CAO. They asked for, like I said, they asked for the hand crews, and the CAO said the office does not recommend the department's request and recommends to note and file this report. In other words, the CAO was against the hand crews, funding the hand crews. The CAO, you remember that? What's his name? Matt Slabo, whatever it is. Slabo. He's a piece of shit. You guys, if you guys been following politics for a while, you already knew he was a piece of shit. But you make sure you hold that against him. How he fought, how he recommended against the increase in funding for hand crews, which is outrageous. Again, I think I have a video. Let me see if I can pull a video up of her talking about these hand crews with Monica Rodriguez during one of the meetings. I don't know which one it was. So anyway, to recap how we got to this point. Karen Bass cut the budget for the fire department. Kenneth Mejia noted in a chart that the fire department budget had been cut. It became a talking point. It was used against Karen Bass. She, behind the scenes, was denying it. The fire chief was constantly asked, and she would just deflect answering the questions. And finally, she had enough because, honestly, she was offended. She was offended that she had been sounding this alarm on the improper amount of funding for the fire department for the longest time after time. It's got to be insulting to have the mayor come out when the mayor's been fighting her nonstop. It's got to be insulting to have the mayor lie about you and try to shift blame to you just because she's getting a lot of heat because she's hanging out overseas raising money for her little slush funds. That's what I believe was happening over there. That's why my personal opinion. It's got to be frustrating if you're Crowley. And listen, at the same time, Crowley was getting heat because, yes, some fire pumps were not producing water, but that's what happens when, you're going through multiple pumps and, you have all these pumps being used. You have all the hydrants being used. You have everybody's sprinklers on over in the Pacific Palisades in Malibu. You're going to have those water issues, right? But somehow she was getting heat, and it was unfair. It's unfair because Crowley had been sounding the alarm on it. More than sounding the alarm, though, she was taking heat because she was being called the DEI fire chief, the DEI. And I take offense to that. I take offense to that because if you know who this fire chief is, she is not in any way a DEI candidate. So the people who are saying that are some assholes sitting in a basement on their computer talking shit about what she was doing. Let me tell you what she was really doing when, what she does out in the field. So there was a fire that happened years ago over in, I believe it was in Malibu. She was off duty and it was with her partner on their own. went and battled the fires and saved an entire block of homes. They spent 16 hours. Let me pull this up. Oh, wrong one. Here we go. This is from an article from the Malibu Times, right? So, like I said, they had the fire. Here's a picture of them. And her partner spent 16 hours on that block saving all the homes. The only one that was not saved was one that did not have a water source, right? And so it said, over the course of the next 16 hours, the two defended and saved a total of 8 homes on the street. We only lost one home, Crowley said, because it had no water supply. Neither of us had fought a brush fire for at least 5 years, but we went back to our training on how to protect the structure from a brush fire, and we're using only garden hoses and buckets. Garden hoses and buckets, and they saved all those homes. They saved the block. We even split up for a while and did our own work, Crowley said, which goes against the standard fire department training of always working in pairs. But I think that definitely made a difference. We knew we would lose homes if we didn't split up. And listen, she's putting herself, by doing that, by splitting up, you're putting your life at risk. She's putting her life at risk to save these homes. We knew where our safe areas would be and had an idea of how we wanted to approach the fire. So again, you got these people at home sitting there on a computer talking about she's a DEI fire chief. She's a fucking badass. She's doing what you losers would not do on your own. You guys would be the ones fleeing or whatever, you'd be asking her to come for help. She's out there on top of roofs with buckets of water and fire hoses saving homes. That's what you call DEI? Okay. I feel the need to have to defend her because like I said, I take offense to how she was treated and how she was called that. Kind of lost my train of thought. All right, so here's another one. Let me pull this up. Here's another thing that she asked for. Right? Or, we often hear, well, where was the prevention? Where is the prevention at? How come nothing was done as far as prevention? I think that's a great question. I think that's a great question because if you look at it, we have this I guess it would be called the brush threat assessment. It's where people from the LAFD go around to homes to see if brush is cleared 200 feet away from the houses and make sure that trees are trimmed. And if things are being done improperly, they get fined. Well, we haven't produced a brush threat assessment since 2023. And from my understanding, a lot of the reason why we don't have these people out there doing the brush threat assessment is because we don't have the proper funding for it as far as man hours, and they're not going to allow overtime for people to do that. And that's sad because, like I said, this is revenue producing. This is going around. You see that somebody in the Pacific Palisades has brush that's not cleared close enough to their house, and they get a couple $1,000 fine. So it comes in as revenue in that would pay for these salaries. I think that having people do these jobs brings in more money than the salaries it takes to fund this program. But because of we're improperly funded, we don't have enough people to work this brush threat assessment. It all comes back to Mayor Bass. It all comes back to Mayor Bass cutting the fire department budget. Again, we shouldn't even be keeping the status quo. We need to greatly increase the number of sworn personnel, and not just sworn, but also, mechanics and stuff like that, obviously, so we can fix this problem. You got to understand, on the day of the fire, let's see if I have notes on this. On the day that the fire started, we had firefighters show up to work at their stations, and they could not go out to do their service because they did not have enough fire trucks for them, showing up to work, and they did not have enough fire trucks. And then people telling me, well, you know what, the number of trucks that were broken down, sitting, waiting to repair, they were insignificant. They couldn't be used. Again, firefighters are sitting at their stations and unable to leave because they did not have the trucks. Let me see if I could find that. Here we go. I'm going to take it from this article. Okay, fire department funding and recruitment policy came under fire. So this was written a day after I went to the fire department yard, the mechanics yard, and documented all the apparatus out of service. This was the very next day, right? We read the article. As firefighters continue to battle raging fires across LA County, a cut to the LA Fire Department 2025 budget and its commitment to recruiting a more diverse force have come under attack. 4 major fires across LA have killed 16 people, scorched over 38,000 acres, and damaged at least 10,000 structures. More than 166,000 people are under evacuation orders, the county sheriff said Friday. Strong winds, blah, blah, blah. As crews worked on inferno. All right. So as crews work to contain the inferno, LAFD Chief Kristen Crowley is facing criticism for prioritizing diversity, equity, and inclusion within the department. Meanwhile, Crowley has expressed a concern about the $17.4 million. Listen, that diversity, equity, and inclusion stuff, it's bullshit. She's not limiting who can be hired. The mayor and city council have limited who could be hired. That was just a talking point, and I hope that goes away. Again, these issues can't be blamed on her. She was sounding the alarm on lack of personnel, both sworn and also civilian, like I said, mechanics and such, to fix his equipment. I think where's this one part? I want to find the part where it talks specifically. Well, it says here, the fire department budget has grown steadily year over year from $674 million in 2019 to $819 million in 2025, but is down from $837 million in 2024. So that's because it was cut. It was cut by about 18 million. However, Hudley Hayes stated it has been underfunded for at least a decade. Said it's been underfunded for 10 years, right? I want to find the one part where it talks about the firefighters coming to work and not having equipment. So over 100 fire apparatus are out of service, the fire chief says. Budget cuts eliminated civilian positions such as mechanics, which did and has and will continue to severely impact our ability to repair apparatus, Crowley said. Let's see if we can find this. Data shows department needs 62 additional fire stations. Fire stations. We need 62 additional fire stations. Forward. Let me see. It says here, and there aren't enough mechanics to fix all the equipment that is out of service, such as rigs, fire trucks, and hook and ladders. Yes, I think the fire department is overwhelmed by what has happened. The cuts have taken into consideration in terms of the ability to respond to something like this. Still struggle with her. You are about. Just gonna have to bear with me for a second as I skim through this. All right, so it says here, Hawkins noted, and Hawkins hates, is a huge critic of the fire chief. Hawkins is a literal, just like suck ass for Karen Bass, a literal donor for Karen Bass. So don't really take a lot of what he says seriously, but he said Hawkins noted an instance this week where firefighters showed up for work, got suited up, and then we're told to go home. He also mentioned that at times there were firefighters ready to work, but not enough fire engines to take them out to fight the fires. Okay. Now, guys, like I said, this isn't the only time I had seen this said. This had been mentioned in one of the public comment meetings where, or actually, I think it was on a post somewhere where a spouse of fire department, LAFD firefighters said the same thing. We came in work. We weren't able to go out and fight any fires over there in the Palisades or in the Valley because why? Because we didn't have any fire trucks to get into. So again, I take great offense to Karen Bass talking this shit about how, oh, we need to have an investigation into this. It's been investigated. You cut the force. You cut both sworn and civilian personnel. And because of that, this equipment is out of order and hasn't been fixed. It's you. You investigate yourself, Karen Bass. That's who you investigate. And if you want to look at it deeper, I'm going to tell you again. Let me pull up the budget again. We're in this mess because of this right here. You see the arrow? That's where Karen Bass cut. It's the fire department. But that top line up here, that was the increase last year of the police department. That's how big that's $126 million increase to the police department. So how much is the police department asking for this year? They're asking for a $250 million increase. Double. See this line right here? They want to double that. Well, where the fuck is the money going to come from? Where is it going to come from? What are we going to cut more? We're going to cut street services? We're going to cut aging some more? We're going to cut street lighting. You guys ever go to South Central? Go to South Central right now. Go drive down Vermont. Go drive down Normandy. Go drive down Western. Cut up any of the other street. Go down Gage. Go down. You notice something when you go in South Central. There's no lighting. It's dark as hell. That area needs lights badly. But you know, we have to cut that shit because we have to give the cops more money. You want to reduce some of the crime in South Central? Light up the streets better. Not necessarily more cops. It's not necessarily more cops. Not more cops. What do the streets look like out there? Go ride around LA. It's a fucking mess. It smells like shit. Sanitation's been cut. We're cutting all these things. Again, we're cutting aging. What is wrong with us? We're cutting aging to give the police more money. But we're kind of stuck because Karen Bass worked out a labor agreement with the police union where they gave them humongous increases. Everybody in city council except for 3 members, Nithya Raman, Eunices Hernandez, and Hugo, voted against the increase for the police pay increase, their contract. But it was a backbreaking contract. It's defunded our city. And we're stuck with that contract. And then all the other agencies come in and said, hey, you gave the cops that deal. We want the same deal too. And what can you say? So now all the departments are getting this backbreaking budget increases. And it's defunded our city. It's defunded our fire department, right? Because the fire department, they have a new labor agreement too, which will increase their salaries, which increases the strain on the budget, but it doesn't increase the number of firefighters, doesn't increase the number of civilian employees to fix the apparatus, and it doesn't increase the repair or the replacement of apparatus that's at the end of its life. I believe we have a couple of helicopters that need to be replaced. Those are expensive, but we can't replace them because of our budget situation. So if you wonder why Karen Bass has been treating the fire department like shit, she's treating them like shit because she's been obligated to give the police department more money. Remember, the police department, they didn't endorse her. They endorsed Rick Caruso. They didn't endorse her. And the police union spent $3.5 million against Karen Bass, fighting against her on behalf of Rick Caruso. But now all of a sudden, the police union is buddy with Karen. It's because she gave them all the fucking money. She gave the police department all of our fucking money. And it's defunded our city. And listen, if you think that the police union isn't in the tank for Karen, let me show you this. Let me pull this up. Just give me 1 second here. All right. Because this is crazy shit, man. Let me find it. I think I just tweeted about it the other day. I hope I tweeted about it. It'll just make it easier to find. That way I don't have to go searching. Oh, yeah. I know I'd find it right over here. Here we go. Let me pull this up. So there's this tweet. So Rick Caruso, remember, the police union endorsed Rick Caruso. And Rick Caruso criticized Karen Bass for her handling during the fires. So Rick Caruso, who was endorsed by the police union, criticized Karen Bass. And here is the police union coming to caping for Karen Bass, coming to her defense. They said, hey, Rick Caruso should stop politicizing these tragic fires and stop attacking the mayor, Karen Bass. The mayor has been leading and has been in continuous communication with local, state, and federal officials to support our first responders to save lives and property. Guys, this is at a time when everybody was mad at Karen Bass. This was the height of the fires. No one defended Karen Bass. No one. These fools right here were the only ones defending him. The police union. And why? Because Karen Bass gave him the whole bag, gave him all the money. And the police union knows that if the fire department is properly funded, then it will decrease the amount of money that the LAPD can get. See, the LAPPL, the police union, wants all the money. Their whole goal is to get every fucking penny of the city budget that they can, justified or unjustified. They just want the largest share possible. They're only thinking of themselves. They're not thinking of the city and the city's needs. In fact, a lot of these people, like I said, 84% of these members don't live in the city of LA. So they don't really give a shit about LA. They don't care if we're defunded. We don't care. They don't care if our city's falling apart. They don't care. They don't live here. They're taking that money. That money is fleeing to San Bernardino and Orange County and Ventura and Riverside. It's fleeing out of state to Nevada and Idaho and New Jersey and Texas and fucking Tennessee. It's going to all these other places where the cops live. And so if Karen Bass or the city council is pressed into having to increase the fire department budget, that means it's going to decrease the LAPD budget. So expect in the coming months, we're in budget season coming up. We're in February now, or we have 4 months before the budget, and it's really going to be hammered out over the next 2 or 3. Let's see how it turns out. Let's see if there's some sort of correction, if the LAPD gets a larger share. I was in the LAPD commission last week. They told me? Said violent crime is down. They said considerably. I think it was like 38%. They said property crime is down by about the same, 30-something percent. Crime is down. They've been saying it time and time again. Crime is down when you look at the numbers. But at the same time, they're asking for more money. Justify that. How do you justify increasing the LAPD budget when crime is down? It doesn't make sense to me, and we have other priorities that need to be taken care of. Like I said, the LAPD has defunded our city. I would like to do things that would reduce crime over the long term, like investing in the city, investing in job programs, investing in the youth, things like that. That's what we do. Getting people off the street, getting them the care they need. Like I said, like something like 4% of the population is responsible for 50% of the 911 calls. Well, maybe we should take care of that 4%. We should address them, figure out what it is. I don't have the answers on everything. That's not my specialty. I focus on the LAPD and things of that nature. But you run for office saying you're gonna get 17,000 people off the street in your first year, and you don't. I mean, she says, yeah, we brought 17,000 inside. That means they were counting anybody who spent one night in a hotel. They counted as we brought them inside. Well, if that's the case, Eric Garcetti was bringing in 17, 18, 19,000 people every year as homelessness exploded. So she's full of shit on that stuff. So yeah, listen, like I said, Karen Bass can tell you that they need to do an investigation. The shit has been investigated. It's been investigated. We investigated this. There's nothing left to be said. Karen Bass needs to take responsible for her own mess that she created. Stop deflecting. I know it's not easy for her to do, right? For all these years, she's been getting by on that, her veneer smile and her raspy, it's a cool sounding raspy voice, but that's about all she had to offer. And she said, we're going to come together and, like I said, try to do this inspirational stuff. People aren't looking for the mayor for that shit. No one cares. Nobody wants the mayor to inspire them. The average neighbor doesn't give a fuck about the person next door. Why? We're in LA where it's, it's sort of a transient area where people stay here for a year or two or three and then they move on, right? So you're not going to have that natural sense of community in a lot of places. In some places you do, you definitely do. I don't think Karen Bass, after spending the last 20 years in Washington, has a good understanding of LA. I don't think she knows LA. I don't think she understands LA. I don't think she understands the neighborhoods. I don't think she's, like I said, she's never had pushback since when she was in Congress. She would come home and she would just, show up at her office or show up at some function and with her big smile and socialize. I don't think she's used to being criticized. She finally started getting criticized and she kind of collapsed under pressure. That's her problem. That's not our problem. I think that she wants to listen, her career is over. She's not going to win re-election. She's not. It's just the way it is right now. Rick Caruso is everywhere and he's, I'm not a fan of Rick Caruso. Rick Caruso, you think Karen Bass gave the LAP the bag? Rick Caruso wanted to give them a bigger bag. But he's taken advantage of this opportunity of her own making, her own mess. He's taken advantage of it, and I think he's going to be in strong lead. Listen, I would hope somebody like Kenneth Mejia would run. I think Kenneth Mejia would have a lot of energy behind him and stuff. And it's also, remember, Kenneth Mejia, Karen Bass, she ran around talking about how she got the most votes for any mayor in history. Yeah, you know who ran that election too? Kenneth Mejia for controller. He got more votes than you. He got more votes than any elected official in LA City history. LA City history. Him. Who ran for controller? Like, who comes out like that for controller? You want to look at each one of the council districts. He won every council district. I think he outperformed every council member in their own district. I have to fact check that, but I think that's true. So I would like to see him run. Karen Bass is toast. She's just dead woman walking. This is just more than a lame duck. She is the lamest duck possible. I know she wants to fix her career, but maybe taking a little bit of responsibility would be a start. Rather than do that, here she was just yesterday deflecting it, saying we need to do an investigation, blah, 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 blah. Let me distract you with some more bullshit. Nobody's going to fall for that. And so, but she sure as hell offended myself, and I'm sure offended a lot of others. So yeah, that's my take on Karen Bass, the gaslighter in chief of LA City. Next time one of you reporters hear her say, and listen, this is a failure of KCAL. When she said that, they said, hey, what are you talking about? All this information has been available for a long time. The yard over there has been packed for a long time. People have been talking about that. The fire chief has been talking about all these issues for a long time. But rather than do that, they said nothing. They just sat there and said, okay, she said she's going to do an investigation, so that's where it's at. You didn't challenge her. And that's part of the problem we have here in LA. Is journalists, the media sucks. You guys suck. There's a handful of good reporters, a small handful. 90% of you are fucking lazy. You guys don't do anything. You don't get off your ass. Why was I going over to Lincoln Heights to look at the fire yard? Nobody else could do that. Why was I having to drive over there? Not one of you reporters can go and look at that. It was out there. It was a story just waiting. But here they are a month later, KCAL saying, hey, just this is new information just reported. Shut up. You guys are behind as usual. And because you guys don't do your jobs, these politicians get away with their crap. Like I said, this issue we're having right here with the budget is a problem, and it's causing all these problems. And we're having destruction from wildfires, and people are losing their lives because of these budget problems. And it needs to be addressed. But why aren't you, any of you reporters, when you see Karen Bass, say, "Hey, Karen Bass, what are you going to do about the budget?" When Kenneth Mejia warned you about our budget problems, warned you, you said those were doomsday predictions. Why didn't you? But you guys don't do that. Here, actually, let me pull this up. I'll give you an example. Let me see here. Just give me 1 second. See, I went and confronted Karen Bass specifically about the budget. I came looking for her. I found out she was going to be at Pink's Hot Dog, and I was like, I'm going to go find her, and she's got to answer for this budget mess that she's created, because she created a big budget mess. Let me see here. Is this one? I think it is.
I wanted to go live as soon as
Okay, here we go. Let me find the exact part.
And so, like I said,
mismatch. 1 second, guys.
In that.
Okay. This is what you reporters should be doing.
Yeah,
I knew she was over there at Pink's Hot Dog, so I went looking for her. When I walked up, one of her aides saw me, and she went running her ass off, went fucking booking, trying to find the mayor, because to warn her that I was there to ask questions. Imagine being so scared of being asked questions. If I was a mayor, I'd be like, "Hey, what questions do you have?" I see it as a good challenge. Like, this is what I signed up for, right? If you're going to run for mayor, this is what you sign up for. You sign up to have to deal with people asking you tough questions. So anyway, let me pull it. Let me play this. Let me see if I can find the part.
It was perfect.
what you do?
Oh, that's her aide.
Wait.
All right, here we go. So like I said, I was waiting in the alleyway. You got this lunkhead right here. He kept on trying to bully me and shit, try to stop me from addressing him.
Mayor Bass, do you want to explain why you said the budget forecast by Kenneth Mejia was a theatrical exaggeration and doomsday projection? Do you want to say anything about that, Mayor? Mayor, you want to talk about that? Mayor, do you want to talk about that? You don't want to talk about your budget, huh? Look at you guys. Look at how you guys act. Look at how you guys act when people ask questions about her mismanagement. Look how you guys do on a taxpayer dime at that. Shame on all of you. The taxpayers are paying you to cover up that. You guys are all shameful.
Again, nobody's asked the mayor about how she's fucked up this budget. She's fucking destroyed the budget. Nobody's going to ask her. Like, what kind of reporters are you? Why do I have to go hang out in the alleyway behind a fucking taco stand to ask the mayor these questions when you guys should be doing it? You guys suck. I can't stress it enough. You guys absolutely suck at your job. You're so fucking lazy. But anyway, that's going to be my rant for now. Like I said, I plan on talking about the LAPPL and their shenanigans. I'll talk about that tomorrow night. It's early enough that I can go out there and have a little fun with the cops a little bit. If you might check me out later, I might be on a live stream. I got some complaints to go file over at the station on the Hollywood division captain. But yeah, once again, long story short, Don't let Karen Bass gaslight you. She is gaslighting you right now. And listen, I have a lot more documents that I could have brought up about the fire department, but this has already been an hour and 20 minutes. Probably getting sick of hearing my voice rant about it. But yeah, so check me out later on, maybe if I'm filing complaints. If not, tomorrow I will be back. We'll be talking about the police union. Although something else could come up because the LAPD is always just doing something fucked up. We could have some off-duty cop getting in another drunk driving accident or something overnight, and so you never know. You never know what's going to happen. All right, guys, thank you for tuning in. Take care, and once again, as always, thank you to the mods. You have a good night.